This week on One Decision, we're going to talk to Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, who's on the Foreign Affairs Committee. And we're going to discuss a wide range of issues from Syria, Ukraine, China policy, whether or not the U.S. actually should or wants to buy Greenland, the Panama Canal, or change the name of the Gulf of Mexico. So we've got a lot to talk about there. But we also checked in with our co-host, Leon Panetta, and asked him to give us some reflections on former President Carter and whether or not he thinks American expansionism is a good or bad thing for the incoming Trump administration. Please take a listen. Several of Carter's policies are still relevant today. One, he did institute the One China policy, right? Because China's government in exile had been in Taiwan. And I think people forget that until Carter, the U.S. still officially recognized that as the head of China, even though they hadn't been running the country in a couple decades. So he did come up with the One China policy, and that's a balance we're still dealing with today. He also, as you mentioned, worked on the deal to give the Panama Canal back to Panama. Now, that didn't become official until the mid-90s, which seems like it took a very long time. The handover took a while. Incoming President Trump has said that he would like to reassert American control over the Panama Canal. We're getting a very bad deal on the shipping. He would also like to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of the United States, and he's back at it in Greenland again, which Denmark has said is not for sale. But he has sent his son and the official Trump plane up to the fjords to see what they can do about that. What are your thoughts on any of this?
Well, my first reaction is, President Trump, do you realize that you're becoming president with probably one of the most dangerous worlds we've seen since World War II? We're confronting Putin, his aggression in Ukraine. We're confronting China's threat to Taiwan to take it over. We're confronting North Korea and their threat to go after South Korea, but more importantly, send troops to Russia to basically fight the Ukrainians. We're dealing with Iran, which remains a destabilizing force in the Middle East, and Iran that is very close to developing a nuclear weapon. We're dealing with terrorism. We just saw what happened with terrorism recently in this country, that they could inspire a lone wolf to make the kind of attack we saw in New Orleans. We're dealing with a lot of real dangers here that need to be addressed by the President of the United States. Now, what he's doing is saying, oh, no, what I really care about is whether or not we can take over Greenland, whether we can take over the Panama Canal, whether we can take over Canada, all of which is like a bizarre kind of reaction that in some ways, you understand Trump likes to do this. I mean, I think we're all accustomed.
Yeah, the Greenland thing is not new. We did the Greenland thing in the last administration. When I was covering Pompeo, the Greenland thing was a thing. But nobody, even other Republicans with the administration, and honestly, I think even Pompeo kind of gave it like a wink and a nod, and everybody just said, okay, sure, and moved on. But it's back.
So, I don't think there's any question that he loves to be unpredictable. He loves to shake things up. That's how he gets attention. That's what he's been doing most of his life. And so to some extent, people kind of sit back and say, yeah, okay, that's fine. But what he fails to understand is he's not a candidate for president anymore. He is president of the United States. And his words have an impact. They mean something. And if he continues to play this game of talking about taking over Greenland and doing the things that he's talking about, let me tell you, he's going to scare the hell out of our allies. He's going to scare the hell out of people around the rest of the world who will suddenly say, Trump has lost it, because instead of focusing on the real dangers that are out there, he's now talking about using military force to basically become an aggressor and go after new territory. We are a country now that is trying to expand our territories, which is against every fiber of foreign policy that we have in this country. We believe people ought to be able to self-govern. We believe that people ought to be able to make a decision about how they want to be able to govern themselves. That's what America's all about. And now to say we're going to ignore those international rules and suddenly do what we want, he is doing the equivalent of what Putin did with Ukraine, which is to say, you don't have the right to decide how to self-govern. I have the right to basically invade your country and take it over. I mean, that's the kind of thinking that Trump is now engaged in, and it's dangerous.
Also, the history of people and the Panama Canal is not great for superpowers. It wasn't great for the Brits. It wasn't great for the French. Then we took it over, lost a lot of people. Like, let's, some things, maybe let's just let them stay where they are. So.
Yeah, I mean, look, as far as I know, we haven't had a hell of a lot of problems with regards to shipping through the Panama Canal. We've been able to, pay the fees. We ship through the canal. I mean, the biggest problem with the Panama Canal is climate change.
That's what I was going to say. I confess not to, this might be a gap in my knowledge. I'm not an international shipping expert, but I did read a couple months ago, again, about water levels and how the canal is struggling to accommodate these larger vessels with less water. And yeah.
And also, look, one of the things we've learned is that if we want to protect our influence in Latin and Central America, we have got to be willing to listen to them and to work with them. And, for us to suddenly say, we're going to go back to kind of an America that says, to hell with you, we're going to basically go in and do whatever the hell we want. It's going to undermine our relationship, not just with Panama, but with every country in Latin and Central America. So, he's got to basically, he's got to be diverted very quickly by those around him, so that, if he gets up in his inauguration, he really speaks to the world that a president has to deal with, not this crazy world of suddenly making America a 21st century aggressive, dominating, and country that has lost its bearings with regards to what's right and wrong.